Hey guys, it's Brian with Retired at 40. We are back in the Live Life Simple kitchen this morning because today we're going to do another versus video. We're going to do a Harvestright home freeze-dried version versus a store-bought freeze-dried version. And today we're going to be doing Backpacker's Pantry brand, which is becoming one of the more popular store-bought. And we're going to do Chana Masala. We're going to take this pile of ingredients. We're going to make our own version. We're going to get a formula of how to rehydrate. And with any luck, we're going to knock the socks off of this Backpacker's Pantry brand because it's pretty darn expensive. At the time I'm recording this, the cheapest I could find this Chana Masala Backpacker's Pantry was $6.95 and it was 79 cents per ounce. This just happens to be 7.9 ounces. It is a 2-serving package, which compared to a lot of the other companies that are freeze-dried that are only single serving, that's actually a pretty good deal. And today I'm going to give you my version of this Chana Masala. We're going to make our own copycat recipe. We're going to make it for a lot less. But first I want to open this up, see what we have to work with, see if we need to make any adjustments to the recipe, and I want to get a weight to see how accurate the weight is on here. So we're zeroed out on our scale. And it looks like it's right on, actually a little bit more even, it says 8.1 ounces. It's kind of teetering back and forth from 8 to 8.1. So if you look at the ingredients, you can definitely see rice, you can definitely see the turmeric and that kind of mixture that gives it the flavor that it's getting. There's some chickpeas in here. The one thing different that I'm seeing in here that our recipe is going to have, potatoes. Another thing I like to do on these comparison videos, I actually like to look at the ingredients just to see what is in here, if there's anything that you can't pronounce, any additives, preservatives, things like that, because our stuff is not going to have that. So we've got pre-cooked long grain rice, garbanzo beans, which are chickpeas, the sauce, which is a coconut milk powder, tomato powder, sea salt, paprika, organic dried tomato flakes, onion, garlic, turmeric, cumin seed. And that to me is good because those are the exact same things we're going to put into ours, with the exception of potatoes, because I think the potatoes really add a lot to this recipe. It gives you that heartiness. It's almost like an Indian version of our American chili. So I'm going to put this back in the bag into their Mylar with the oxygen absorber, and then I'm going to seal this back up, and that way we've got fair results when we go to rehydrate everything, because I will rehydrate this one versus our rehydration of our homemade one. And then I'm just going to seal it right back up. This version that we're making today is actually an Instant Pot version. And this is the best way that we have found to make it. So for the quick rundown of ingredients, we're gonna need 2 onions. You're gonna want 4 cloves of garlic or some minced fresh garlic. This is the one we usually use. You need 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then for the spices, you're going to need chili powder, some cumin, some turmeric, some ground coriander, some garam masala, and then a little bit of salt and pepper. Our potatoes today are a little small, so I'm actually adding some more, but a regular sized potato you probably want about 6. And the potatoes are just something that we're adding in. They're not a necessity. A lot of the Chana Masala recipes that I've ever seen include the potatoes. I don't know why they didn't include it in the store-bought stuff, because it would be a cheap ingredient to kind of bulk up, but I don't know, I'm sure they have their reasons. Okay, let's move on to our canned ingredients. We're gonna need garbanzo beans, chickpeas, same thing. You're gonna want 4 cans of those. That's kind of the heart and soul of this recipe. 2 cans of diced tomatoes, and then 2 cans of coconut milk. One of the things I love about this recipe is it's Instant Pot. Usually anything that's Instant Pot is really fast to throw together. It cooks quickly. We're gonna go to saute, and we're gonna add our 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So now I'm going to add my 4 cloves of garlic, which is about 2 teaspoons worth, and then 2 whole onions. We're going to saute these until they are translucent. While we're waiting for those onions to cook, we're going to work on our flavor. That starts with some coriander. We're going to do 4 teaspoons of coriander, and then 4 teaspoons of cumin, 4 teaspoons of garam masala, 2 teaspoons of turmeric, 2 teaspoons of chili powder, and then we're going to do a teaspoon or 2 of salt, just depending on how salty you want it. Alright, so our onions are good now. They're translucent. We're going to shut off our saute. We're going to go to pressure cook We're gonna go to 15 minutes. I'm gonna add in our bowl of big time flavor with all of our seasons and spices and just kind of give that a stir. And then I'm gonna open up all of our canned stuff. The diced tomatoes, you wanna keep the juice in there. The garbanzo beans, rinse them. All right, we're gonna add in all of our potatoes, our 2 cans of diced tomatoes, leave the juice, don't wanna drain those. 4 cans of chickpeas, and these should be rinsed and drained. 2 cans of coconut milk. We're gonna keep our fingers crossed that these are gonna freeze dry because coconut milk does have a bit of oil in it. We're just gonna give this a quick stir and then we're gonna put our lid on and we should be good to go as soon as our 15 minutes is up. So if you remember from a few minutes ago when you saw the contents of the store-bought chana masala, it was primarily rice. Most of it was all rice, and I don't really like adding rice to chana masala because I think it kind of just cheapens up the recipe, which is probably why they use it in here. It's inexpensive to use. But just to keep things fair, I'm gonna add 3 cups of cooked rice to our finished product over there. So I'm gonna go ahead and cook this on the stove and then I'll add it to our finished product before we freeze dry. All right, this is all ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and add our 3 cups of rice. Then I'm gonna mix all of this rice together with the rest of our ingredients to get it all even before we put it on our trays. And I can already tell you, I know which one I would rather eat. All right, I'm gonna fill up 2 trays ideally, although this is looking like it might fill up a few trays, maybe even all 4, I'm not sure. And this made a lot bigger batch than I thought it was going to. I think that this is gonna have no problem filling all 4 medium trays. You might even be able to fill almost an entire large batch with it. And look how good that finished product is. Got about half of the thing gone. I'm actually gonna just do 2 trays today. I'm gonna get a weight on these because I've been trying to get these freeze dried for a while. I'm gonna freeze dried some pickled beets and some of my homegrown mushrooms with it. All right, this tray weighs 1,870 grams. This second tray weighs 2,163. Let's just go ahead and even these out. So now we've got both at about 2,160 grams. I'm gonna add these tray stackers to these so we can carry them downstairs. And we're actually gonna run a full cycle on this, so we're gonna let the freeze dryer do all the freezing. And because we're gonna compare the costs of both the home freeze dried and the store-bought, I'm gonna use my kilowatt meter so we can get an electrical cost. And you can see we're zeroed out, 0 kilowatt hours. Look at those delicious mushrooms. Okay, well, assuming that our coconut milk will freeze dry and nothing out of the ordinary happens, we should be good to go in about 24-ish hours. We'll see you soon. I'm also really excited to try out this new toy that I bought for freeze drying. I've been wanting to buy one of these for a while, and I just finally broke down and bought one. It's a pin type moisture meter. I think this will really help determine whether something is completely dry when we take it out of the freeze dryer. It'll kind of take some of that guesswork out of it. I'll put a link to where you can get one of these for yourself. All right, now we're at 26 hours, 43 minutes. Something that's been coming up a lot in the groups and just on the channel comments is it normal to get frost around here? And as far as I'm concerned, it's totally normal because it happens every single cycle on this new freeze dryer that I have. Our trays aren't cold this time, so that's a good sign. Not getting any kind of a reading. Also a good sign. Well, first time using this and I really like it. I think it's gonna come in really, really handy. I think it's probably one of those things that every freeze dryer needs. So let's get a weight on these trays. The first tray is 1,222 grams. Second tray, 1,169 grams. Our kilowatt hours were 17.55 kilowatt hours. So that means about $1.75 for electrical costs. So we'll go ahead and add that onto our cost of making our home freeze dried. So let's take these upstairs, get a quick peek at them. We'll do a cost analysis for both the home freeze dried and the store-bought freeze dried, and then we'll rehydrate both and we'll see which one does better. So here's our homemade chana masala. And then here's our Backpackers Pantry. And when you put the two side by side, you can definitely see the color difference. There's a lot more, it looks like a lot more seasoning in the homemade. There's definitely a lot more rice, which to me just equals cheapness. But the most interesting thing to me is the difference in volume between these two. This is actually 7 ounces. This is 7 ounces. And I would imagine if you rehydrate these both at 7 ounces, this is going to weigh a whole lot more. This would feed, I don't know, probably 3 people, maybe more than 3 people, because this has got potatoes in it. It's really just gonna be a lot more hearty than the one that's just full of rice. But look at the difference just in the size of the chickpeas and just probably the quality of the chickpeas. And our total weight is weighing in at a massive 1 pound, 12 ounces, so almost 4 times more in this batch. And I've got a feeling it's gonna be about the same price for this for 4 times as much. And that's 800 grams. Let's do a quick cost breakdown. The Backpackers Pantry was an 8-ounce package. It was $6.99. In comparison to our home freeze-dried, all of our ingredients were $11.94. Our electricity cost was $1.75, and then you add our packaging in there, which would be the Mylar and the oxygen absorbers, which is a total of 75 cents. That's our cost from our store, freezedryingsupplies.com. That gives us a total of $14.44, which was actually a lot more than I was expecting it to be. But keep in mind that big volume size difference in our finished product. I think 8 ounces of our finished product would feed more like 3 people instead of 2. And then also our finished product was 3.3 times the amount of what was in the Backpackers Pantry. So we're going to divide that out for a total of $4.33. So I do have one small concern that I mentioned earlier, and that is the oiliness of the coconut milk. And I think that's probably a pretty easy fix. They make a light coconut milk, or you could also just completely substitute the coconut milk with something else completely. So the store-bought Chana Masala actually uses a coconut milk powder. So if you could get your hands on some coconut milk powder, then you might have something. Let's give this stuff a taste test and then we'll go over the cost breakdown. All right, so the directions on here say add 2 1/4 cups of boiling water. So I've got my water boiling. It's my favorite way of rehydration because it's just, you can do it anywhere, and it's just the easiest way. This also says seal and let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes, so that's interesting. I've never heard that before, but we'll do that for both. I'm actually gonna add the same amount of water back to ours to see where that gets us. So I'm gonna mix both of these all together. They each have 2 1/4 cups of water in them. We're gonna cover these both up, let them sit for 20 minutes, and then we'll give them a taste test. Okay, let's see what we've got. Surprisingly, that sucked up a lot of water. The texture is a lot better than it was. So let's do a side-by-side here. The Backpackers Pantry, to me, is very underwhelming. It really just looks like rice haroni or something. It's pretty much all rice, which is why I added the potatoes in mine. You've got big chunks of potatoes, you've got full-size chickpeas instead of these little wimpy ones. But let's do the most important part, and that would be the taste test. So first we'll try the rice haroni, Backpackers Pantry. It's really not impressive at all. Obviously I'm a little one-sided because I'm a freeze dryer, but this really is, that's what it tastes like also, is rice haroni. There's not a whole lot of flavor to it, it's mostly rice. Real Chana Masala will have a very distinct flavor. This has a little bit of it, but it definitely needs more of it. So hopefully these potatoes, since I chopped them up into little cubes, hopefully they got done enough. A lot more bold flavor. I really like the potatoes in there. It changes the whole attitude of this. Bigger chunks of tomatoes, less rice, more spices. And like usual, I think it's a no-brainer. It's a clear winner. So a couple things before I leave you today. One is you definitely want to make sure that this is completely done. I probably filled my trays up quite a bit farther than I should have. I would probably level it under the top of the tray, make sure that it's kind of spread out so it has room to breathe. The second thing, I would definitely invest in one of those moisture meters. They're $20. It works great. I'm gonna keep testing it before I actually fully promote it to you guys. But I would count on seeing it in the next Harvestright hacks video. In the meantime, this is Retired at 40. Remember to live life simple, and we'll catch you next week.